Hello, everyone. So, I wanted to talk about why me, as a brown person, a person who's lived around white people, who doesn't have any black friends, who talks like a white person, why would this person support Black Lives Matter? Now, it's very interesting because, just to give you a little bit of background about brown people, brown immigrants in general. So, brown immigrants that migrate to the United States or any country in the West, they are generally self made people, hardworking, and they tend to assimilate really well with white people and integrate well with white people in their communities. And they don't really integrate or assimilate into black culture. So they assimilate into the dominant culture. They feel that white people have given them the honor. They feel privileged to move to their country and engage in the dominant culture, which is the white culture. And unfortunately, brown people, you would assume that they're people of color, so you would assume that they would have some kind of affinity or some kind of understanding about black plight, but they don't. They see of them in very general stereotypical ways, just like white people do. They think of them as criminals and drug dealers and all that kind of stuff. And it's really unfortunate because as I've personally read up more about black people and the plight that they've gone through, I realized that it's really unfortunate what they've had to go through. And, just to kind of give you let you guys know why I feel like that. So it all started from the documentary 13 and Boys in the Hood. So if you read up, if you look, or if you watch that movie, Boys in the Hood, there's a scene about gentrification, and it talks about how black people the communities black people lived in, they've been gentrified, and people have been made to leave their communities, their neighborhoods, and live in poverty. And it's, when you start reading up on that, when you start reading up on the role of the CIA and the other agencies and how they interacted and supported the cartels in Latin America and Central America, and how they brought drugs into the country, there's a feeling that there's forces inside the United States that want black people to fail. Detroit used to be one of the most prosperous cities in the United States, and it was the manufacturing hub. And unfortunately, because it was black, they were made to suffer. And you would never see this kind of suffering if it was like a white dominated city. So there's a lot of reasons behind why I feel that black people have been suffering in the United States. And I believe there's this honestly, I believe after interacting with so many white people and living across the United States, I feel that there's a lot of shame in white people. There's a lot of guilt about slavery. Now, they don't want to be reminded about slavery. A lot of people, they don't, because they feel guilty about it, but they don't want to get blamed for it anymore. So there's some people that desperately want black people to fail. There's a lot of people in the United States as well that support black people, and they absolutely feel embarrassed about slavery, and they try to do the right thing, and they empower black people, and they try to help black people. So there's a lot of white people that support other black people as well, but there's a lot of people that feel a lot of shame and take that negatively, and they want black people to suffer. And secretly inside, they feel very happy when black people fail. And honestly, you can blame it on anything. Now, a lot of white people that tell me that you can't blame any systemic racism when black people are living in the hood, in the project, and they live off of hip hop, and the kids are brought up by their mothers, and there's fatherless households. So you have to like blame black culture for that. So yeah, black culture, you can blame that, but that's more the symptom of everything. There's If you start looking into all of this, as I mentioned, you realize that drugs were brought into the country, and unfortunately, they were mostly present in black neighborhoods, and how they got there, I mean, you have to realize that there were secret forces, powerful forces in the United States that wanted black people to suffer. So so if you talk about systemic racism, you realize if you read up any studies posted by the state, you're going to realize that black people are incarcerated a lot more than white people for the same crime. They serve longer, they get punished more, and they just have it a lot rougher. If you look at neighborhoods in the United States that have been gentrified, they've kicked out all of the black people from the inner cities close to the downtown area, and now these property prices have gone up significantly. So there's gentrification. There's obviously been there's good examples of gentrification, there's bad examples of gentrification. So I wouldn't blame gentrification for all of that, but unfortunately black neighborhoods have much less facilities, much more or less resources. The police is very much on the edge. If you see black people and white people committing the same crime, the person's going to be suffering a lot more than the white person who's just going to get a slap on his wrist and told to leave. So there's a lot of injustices against black people, and they live in fear. They live in fear because they have to go through this every day. I mean, look at banking loans and mortgages. There's examples of black people getting declined, and there's examples of white people not letting black people settle into their neighborhoods. So brown people, they integrate really well with white people because they don't have their own identity in the United States. They can assimilate and they can integrate well with white people, but black people, they have their own culture. And black people, they were brought into this country as slaves, and they contributed heavily to this country. So brown people moving in, it's a recent phenomenon, but black people have their own culture and they're proud of it. And honestly, I think as a minority that's suffering, I think the best way to empower someone is the most important way and the most important means of actually getting the black community to develop is to actually sympathize and empathize with black people and what they're going through. I think Black Lives Matter can succeed only when there's more non-black people supporting it. Just like me as a brown person, or as a Muslim person, I feel like if there's any discrimination against Muslims, I feel the only way a Muslim can actually have better conditions in the United States is when non-Muslims protest for them. So I think black people should try to empower themselves and feel that they're part of the system, whereas non-black people should support black people. And so I think there shouldn't be like a victim mentality. I feel like the people that are suffering should try to take ownership and feel empowered, but everyone else needs to stand up. So me as a brown person, I feel like I have to stand up for black people. And I don't know too much about Black Lives Matter as a movement. It can be anarchist, it can be Marxist. I don't know about their political leanings. And there's a lot of people that try to discredit the black struggle because of these conspiracy theories, and I don't know too much about it. Maybe that's true, but really I don't really care about what political leanings they have or what they aspire to do in terms of politically. For me, I understand Black Lives Matter, or I express solidarity with black people. That's what I care about. And I think that if we had a little bit of empathy, if we had a little bit of sympathy for the person undergoing the plight, I think the country, the United States, would be a lot better. But when you cannot sympathize and empathize, and when you just want to, it's really easy for the privileged class to not sympathize and say, you got to follow the rules, when you do not go through the same struggle that other people do. So if you're privileged in any kind of way, whether you're white, brown, whatever, if you're a privileged person, you should, instead of holding everyone to the same standards as you, you should try to understand their situation by stepping in their shoes and seeing what they're going through every day. And you cannot just hold everyone at that same standard, because you just don't know what they're going through. I know a lot of black people, they just fear for their everyday life in the United States. It's so bad. In some ways, it's a lot worse than, even war-torn countries, how black people live, because they live very much on the edge, and there's no one to sympathize with them, and there's no it's just really sad how divisive this subject is, because it should never be this divisive. It should be really straightforward that these people are Americans, black African American people, black people are Americans, and they're human beings, and they need to be uplifted and feel empowered and be made to feel like they're part of the system, part of the country. So how can anyone be against that? I just do not understand some people that are against the black movement. I say everyone should support it. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you.